Welcome to the Global News Podcast, where we go behind the headlines. I'm Valerie Sanderson. Today, we're bringing you a story of the human cost of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the Middle East. The West Bank is crucial. So, what of its future? It's been occupied by Israel since 1967, has a population of more than 500,000 Israeli settlers and roughly 3 million Palestinians. One of those Palestinians, a boy called Jad, was killed in November last year. Well, to tell us more, I'm joined by Joel Gunter. So, Joel, tell us about this boy, this 14-year-old Jad.
I should say before I start that this is a distressing story, that some people may find some of the details distressing. Jad was a 14-year-old boy who lived in a Palestinian refugee camp in the occupied West Bank, known as Al-Farah. Back in November, Israeli forces, the Israeli military, were conducting an operation there. And Jad and his friends, and one of his friends who was with him in those critical moments, told us about what happened. They said that they had seen on a messaging group that the Israeli forces were leaving the camp. And Jad and two of his friends went down the alley in the telling of his family and one of these friends who spoke to us in detail, essentially to go and see that they'd left. And this is where the CCTV footage that we've got picks up, essentially. And you see Jad and his two friends on the corner of these two alleys in the camp, and they're peeking to their right around the corner. Then what you see is two of the boys look to their left. And that is them noticing that 4 Israeli soldiers had actually stayed behind and, unknown to the boys, were tucked behind a wall just a few meters, less than 3 meters away from them. We see those 2 boys start running back up the alley. Then Jad turns, and then he sees them. And it appears from the footage that we've analysed like this is the moment that he is shot. And where the CCTV leaves off, bystander footage picks up that was filmed discreetly by a resident in the camp. And that shows us that Jad lay on the ground for a significant amount of time. And this is using a combination of the footage and eyewitness testimony, but we believe that it was at least 45 minutes that he lay there trying to get the soldiers' attention. The Israeli military told us that they gave him some initial medical treatment, but they refused when asked to elaborate on that or give any further details. We don't really see them doing that in the footage. We see them appearing to ignore repeated attempts to get their attention. We know that they blocked 2 Palestinian ambulances from reaching Jad, ambulances that arrived on the scene very, very quickly and were in his sightline. And very tragically, Jad died sometime later.
Did they say why he was shot?
They initially accused Jad of throwing a rock, essentially, or a piece of concrete. This is a very, very common accusation levelled against Palestinians, including children, Palestinians under the age of 18. There is indeed stone throwing. In these types of Palestinian refugee camps and Palestinian areas where the Israeli military conducts operations, it is not uncommon for them to have stones thrown at them. According to their rules of engagement, that can permit them to respond with lethal force if they believe that it poses an immediate threat to the life of some of the soldiers.
Did we see Jad throw a rock?
We did not. There is no video footage that we have of him throwing something. Now, that doesn't mean that footage doesn't exist, but it has not surfaced. The Israeli military has not provided any footage of him doing that. So we just don't know. That was their initial accusation. When we went to them to ask them questions about this, they actually didn't make that accusation explicitly. At that point, They merely said that Jad was a terrorist who had, quote, attempted to attack the force. There is a troubling sequence in the footage that shows one of the Israeli soldiers in this group that stood around Jad for an extended period while he was wounded. The soldier enters the frame from behind a wall, drops something next to Jad. This is after he's been shot and is lying on the floor. The object appears to be heavy, based on the way that he drops it and the way that it falls. The soldier then takes out either a camera or a phone and appears to take a picture of the object lying next to Jad. Now, Jad's parents have watched this sequence over and over again. We showed it to the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem. Both said that it appears to show the soldier attempting to plant an item, an object, next to Jad. The families say that they believe that that was some kind of rock and that the intention of the Israeli soldier was essentially to frame him.
What does Israel see as the future of the West Bank?
The Israeli government has pushed forward a series of measures, very controversial measures, being driven for the most part by hardline members of Israel's government, sort of far-right hardline members, which critics say are essentially attempts to annex the West Bank. On their face, these can seem like quite dull-sounding and administrative measures. They have to do with property registration, how easy it is to find out who owns certain parts of land, how easy it is to register and prove that you own land in the West Bank, as well as who has authority and responsibility over certain administrative functions, environmental things in the West Bank. But these measures have been very, very roundly criticised, both by Arab nations in the region, as well as the European Union, the UN. They say they are attempts by Israel to tighten its grip on the West Bank, particularly a very significant portion of the West Bank known as Area C, which is about 60% of the West Bank and is controlled by Israel. Security control of Area C is with Israel. But about 300,000 Palestinians live there.
You've obviously talked to many Palestinians. What do they want to happen to this area?
Well, Palestinians very much see this region as key to the dream of a future independent Palestinian state. The occupied West Bank, East Jerusalem and Gaza are seen by Palestinians as the territory that they would want for that future independent Palestinian state. So to have these measures, which people say are an attempt to make it more difficult for Palestinians to live there, to own land, to have control and rights over the area, is a very difficult thing, of course, for Palestinians. And it is being seen as yet another roadblock to the dream of that future state.
It's the US that has been driving the peace process in Gaza separately. How involved do you think President Trump is in what happens in the West Bank?
Not very involved from the way that things appear. He has talked about it. He has sort of chided Israel in a way recently. He said publicly that he opposed annexation of the West Bank. When the measures were passed by Israel's security cabinet recently, that, according to critics, are an attempt to tighten its grip on the West Bank, there was this outpouring of criticism from Israel's neighbours, from the EU, from the UN. Trump was effectively silent when that happened. He did not make a public statement. We didn't get a public statement from the US about those measures. So he has been very focused on Gaza. He has been very focused on his board of peace. Of course, at the moment, he is very focused on Iran. It does seem as though what's happening in the West Bank, which can seem a little bit administrative, it can seem hard to understand, but is seen as very, very important for Palestinians. It does seem as though that issue is sort of distantly behind what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Iran, etc.
Thanks, Joel. That was Joel Gunter. If you liked this episode, please subscribe to us here on YouTube. And if there's another story you want us to cover, please tell us in the comments below. There'll be more international news on our Global News podcast. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. But that's it from this edition of the Global News podcast here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you next time.